In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at the information characteristics or qualities that make sources more desirable for your psychology research. My name is Jane Germer, and I'm the librarian here at Doane, responsible for the psychology department. Anytime you have questions about your psychology research, you can reach me either by phone, email, or just dropping by the library. You can even set up an appointment for a longer research consultation of 15 minutes or more. Now that you know who I am, let's get started. The most desirable characteristics of the sources used in psychology research, and I'll go over them in detail in a minute, is that the information is from a primary source, it has been peer-reviewed, it's based on an empirical study, that is, conclusions are made based on observation and data, and it's scientific, which is quite a bit like empirical, where a study is created to prove a hypothesis. The less desirable information characteristics, though they do not necessarily rule out their use, are secondary sources, which means they summarize what primary sources say about a topic, such as a literature review. Non-peer-reviewed sources, so they may have been edited but not critically evaluated by those with expertise on the topic. Non-empirical sources, which might be theoretical in nature instead of based on observation. And finally, sources that are from popular press reports, such as newspapers and magazines. So what do I mean by primary source? Primary means that an information source is produced by the person or persons who were involved in the event or study. Research articles that present new information about a topic are usually written by the researchers who have done the research themselves and are professionals in the field, or possibly a related discipline. Typically, this information is published in peer-reviewed journals, which we'll talk about in a moment. One big clue to look for to identify a primary source is to find words such as "in this study" or "we," that's the authors, "we studied," in the article's abstract, along with a section called methods or methodology. Primary sources come straight from the original source, so there's no interpretation of the information beyond that of the researchers who did the work. Take a look at the beginning of this article and the authors. There are quite a few of them, and we can see from their qualifications, that is, where they were working when this was published, that they should have expertise on the subjects of trichotillomania and obsessive-compulsive disorder. You can look up authors in a search engine like Google to see where they are now, or you might find other publications they've authored to see if they have even more expertise on these topics. And as I mentioned, the abstract is a good place to find clues. If this is a primary source, to find out if this is a primary source, and the first word you'll see here in the background is "this study addresses." So we know that we can be confident that this is a primary source. In addition, you'll notice that the abstract has a description of the methodology used, so this can make us even more confident that it's a primary source of information. Here's an example of a journal article that is not a primary source. You'll notice right at the top that it says it's a review article. Also, the abstract tells you that this article is about prevalence studies. And then the last sentence is very clear that the article is about what it is about and what is known on trichotillomania and treatment interventions, but it does not say it is presenting information about a specific study this author performed. This is called a secondary source because it is reviewing others' works on the topic and summarizing them in an integrated way. As far as peer-reviewed articles go, you are going to find these in journals that have editors and boards of experts in the publication subject. These expert reviewers evaluate submitted articles and are looking for quality research that advances knowledge in the field, as well as determining the scientific merit of the research by questioning the reason for the research to have even taken place. In addition, you'll see that this research is done by the scholars who have themselves done the collecting and analyzing of the data. They've designed the study and also will have analyzed the data that they collect during the study. Peer-reviewed articles have some similarities in their layout. They usually include an abstract or a summary of the research question and study, an introduction that discusses past research on the topic, essentially a literature review, a methodology section describing the study, population, recruitment, inclusion and exclusion criteria, and so on, the results of the study, generally including graphs and charts, and a conclusion or discussion of the study's outcomes, their importance and limitations, and how this study might advance future research. And finally, you'll find a list of sources referenced in the article. One question students frequently ask is, how do you know if a journal is peer-reviewed? Well, one easy way, if you're searching in ProQuest, is to click on the journal title in the citation on the results page or within the record of the article itself. Here's an example of a description for the journal Comprehensive Psychiatry. You'll notice that it says peer-reviewed here, right under the search within this publication search box. In addition, below the thumbnail of the cover, it says Scholarly Journal, which can be another indication that it's peer-reviewed. Here's the publication description of a psychology magazine, Psychology Today. You'll notice that it doesn't say peer-reviewed here under the search within this publication search box, and it says magazine below the thumbnail. The term magazine means it's a periodical written for the general public to understand, so it doesn't have a lot of jargon in it. If you find an article elsewhere and wonder if the journal is peer-reviewed, one of the easiest ways is to find out about it is to search the publication title in Wikipedia. Or you can look at the journal's website. Usually in the About section or the Journal Information section, you can see if it mentions that it is peer-reviewed. A third characteristic we look for in psychology sources is whether the information has been discovered through empirical research. The term empirical means information is discovered through observation or experience instead of just theorizing on a topic. Some clues a journal article is based on empirical research are the existence of charts and graphs in the article, as well as statistical analysis in the outcomes of the study being reported upon. Another clue is a methodology section that describes who participated in the study, how the study was designed, what the participants were asked to do, and what measurements were used to analyze what they did. If they sound a lot like the description of primary research, it's because empirical research is one type of primary research, and the one typically found in peer-reviewed journals. Just a quick scan of an article such as this one tells us this is an empirical study. On this one page alone, we have a chart of the participants' demographics, a description of one of the measures used, and the beginning of the statistical analysis section. In contrast, this article found on the internet about a cure for trichotillomania does not have any charts or graphs, and no study is described. Instead, in the paragraph highlighted, it tells us of a single experience of using this bracelet, and that is of the author. A fourth characteristic we look for in psychology sources is that they are scientific in nature. To be considered scientific, a source should report on new research done on a topic versus reviewing what research was previously done, and that is a literature review. And the research advances the knowledge or study of the discipline or topic. The definition of scientific resources may sound a bit like peer-reviewed and empirical because they are intertwined. Empirical research is a type of scientific research. Articles for both include a research question or hypothesis, the methodology of the study, a discussion or conclusion, and references to previous studies. In addition, scientific articles are normally published in peer-reviewed journals. In this example of a scientific article, you can see in the abstract the population studied, what the treatment was, some statistical analysis, and a conclusion. Of course, more detail will be included in the article itself. This example is an article from a newspaper describing the study in the previous slide for the general population. Even though the treatment, medication, and population of the study, 13 women, are described here, you don't see any statistical analysis in this article. You also don't see any references besides a mention of the journal that this original research was reported in. So we can conclude then that this is not a primary resource and it is not a scientific study itself. Since you're required to find empirical studies for your abnormal psych project, let's do a sample search to find empirical studies. Using the navigation on the left side of this page, we'll go to the Find Articles page and then choose APA PsycInfo to do our research. I did a quick search for trichotillomania and obsessive compulsive disorder, but notice that I put these in two different boxes because they are two different concepts. Now with this search, I got 519 articles in my results. But if I need only empirical studies, how do I know which of these are empirical? Scrolling through the limiters on the left side of the page, I see that one limiter is methodology. So I click on the drop-down arrow to find out what kinds of methodology I can limit my results by. And the first one listed is empirical study. Yay! And it will reduce the number of results by more than half. Now, as I browse through the 229 results, I see in the first few that they're not available in full text in this database. I can request them, though, through the Interlibrary Loan System, which is a service the library provides to get articles from other libraries, usually within a day or two. But what if I don't have that much time to wait to get them? I can go over to the limiters again, and I can click on linked full text using this option here on the left-hand side of the page. And as I scan the results of full text articles, here's an article that I might find interesting. And it mentions my two search terms in the article title itself and in the subjects area of this record. Now I'm going to open the PDF to double check that it is an empirical study. As I read through the abstract, I see in the objective, which is their research question, the words "we sought to examine." So I know the articles are the researchers in this study. I also notice in the abstract that they have a methods, results, and conclusion sections. The abstract also describes the population in the methodology area here. 111 subjects with hair pulling disorder and 32 healthy controls, as well as what the researchers are looking to observe: clinical features and neural dysfunction. Though other data and statistical analysis isn't mentioned here, so I'll need to scan a little further in the article to find any charts or graphs. So a few pages into the article, I can see both a chart of statistical data as well as some analysis of the in the article text. Now I can be pretty confident that I have an empirical research article. I hope this tutorial gives you some ideas on how to recognize the characteristics of a research article that make it a good source for your psychology research. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me by phone, email, or dropping by the library. You can also set up a lengthier appointment for a research session with the Calendly link here. Now that you have watched this tutorial, complete the source characteristics quiz in the box below. And if you have any questions or comments about this tutorial, use the link under the tab Q&A Source Characteristics in the discussion and question box at the bottom of this page. I'll be monitoring this page and answering questions throughout the semester. Remember, the library staff is here to help you succeed.